On today's Retro Tech Repair, we're going to be trying to fix this He-Man power sword that was sent to the channel by Toy Polloi. So a little while ago I was contacted by Dave at Toy Polloi, and if you haven't seen the Toy Polloi YouTube channel, you should check it out. The stuff that goes on over there repairing vintage toys is amazing.
Welcome to Toy Polloi, the #1 resource for vintage toy restoration.
Anyway, Dave reached out to me because he needed a little bit of help with some electronics, so let's take a look. Hi Roger, thanks for agreeing to take a look at this vintage New Adventures of He-Man power sword. My electronic skills are limited, and although I was able to get the sounds working sort of, it just won't shut up. The sword is supposed to be activated by the trigger and the 2 side buttons. It should make no lights or sounds until these buttons are pressed. Currently, as you will see, making sounds and flashing is all it wants to do. The sword should also make noises if you swipe in a hitting motion. To get it to fit in the box, I have removed the blade part. You will see from my video where this should be attached. I'm really excited to see how you get on with this. Cheers, Dave, Toy Polloi. Wow, look at that. That is absolutely incredible. The repair job that has been done on this is phenomenal, and this battery door cover is incredible. Wow, this is really amazing. What great work. Anyway, let's take a look at the electronics. Oh, I hope I didn't damage it. Let's take a look at the electronics. So here is our sword, and I already have my theories about this. I suspect that there are 4 inputs to the microcontroller or whatever it is that's inside here. This switch, this switch, this switch, and then the other one is going to be the switch for the kind of striking action there. And my suspicion is that one of those switches, probably the one for the striking action, is stuck and it's kind of defeating the others, or it's working intermittently. So let's pop some batteries in and see what's going on. So as we can see initially, it seemed to work, but that situation didn't last very long. So it does seem to want to sound all the time, but I still think that it's probably something to do with the sensor for this kind of striking action. Oh, it stopped. Oh no, it's not again. Okay, so let's open it up and see what's inside. Alright, so it looks like all of the electronics are contained in this half, so we can set this one aside for a moment. So looking more closely at our board here, we have power coming in from the batteries onto the printed circuit assembly. We have a switch contact here, which is for the side trigger. The switches for the other 2 buttons I think are probably underneath, probably carbon pill switches underneath there. Looks like we have an output to the LED, which is normally eliminating the sword portion here. But looking at that, it looks like one of those wires is kind of trapped under here. So there is a little cutout here to get the wires from the board up to the LED, but this one looks to be trapped. So I think someone has been in this little box. Inside this little box, I think, is the motion sensor. And in fact, you can see here there's some springs there. And there are contacts going into this, or cables going into this. One of them is marked SE2, that's that one. The yellow one is marked SE1. Presumably there's an SE3 somewhere as well, which I'm not seeing right now. SE2, SE3 is the brown. So yes, yellow SE1, blue SE2, brown SE3 are all going into this little box. The kind of orange one that's going into that little box is marked L+, and presumably is the LED plus connector. Shouldn't be going into that box. Should be kind of going through this cable relief, strain relief here. My theory still is that the trouble lies within here. I'm just a little bit nervous to open it up because I don't have a lot of good experience when it comes to electromechanical assemblies. And in case you want any more evidence of that fact, let's take a quick look at one of my other videos. Well, I'm never getting that back together now. That wasn't a particularly good day, but if I am going to repair this, I am going to have to dig in a little deeper.
Looking more closely at this, and not only is the orange wire trapped in the box, but the LED is misplaced too, so that really confirms my theory that somebody else has been in here.
Alright, so here we have it, and it wasn't that complicated after all. I've zoomed in on this switch mechanism and we can see almost instantly what's going on. There are 3 wires coming from the printed circuit assembly. There's the yellow one, this brown one and this blue one. The yellow one goes to this spring contact which has a screw in the end of it, and I guess when you shake it in one orientation that kind of springs into contact with this metal piece which is then connected to one of the other wires. The 3rd wire is connected to this spring contact which, as we can see, has been quite stretched. So just take a look at those in a little bit more detail. This one is nice and springy, this one is overstretched, and it's going through a hole. Here we go, a hole that's cut into this metal piece, and that hole is what's making the contact here. So when you shake the sword it should be kind of positioned in there and should spring into contact with the edge. But it's been stretched too far and it's kind of sticking on the end here, and sometimes it will stick in permanent contact, like it is now, in permanent contact with this. So as I suspected, it's sort of always on. You can see that, it's a little bit out of focus, but hopefully you can see that's kind of stuck there. So what I need to try and do is see if I can compress this spring a bit more so that it's springy like this one, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So we'll try that first and see if we can get it to be more springy like that. So I think I'm just going to try and slide it out first. It doesn't seem to be too tight in there. And let's see if we can get this out. I'm going to come out with my fingers. Let's get some pliers or something on it just to gently pull it out there. And we'll see if we can just kind of compress it back into place. I don't think it's going to do that. Alright, so another alternative might be to kind of switch it round so it's in the other orientation, or maybe switch it with this one where it's less important. So let's do that. That was the blue one. Let's take the yellow one out here, see if that comes out as easily, and it does. And we'll switch that one round so that it sits in here. So now that's sitting kind of comfortably in the middle of the hole, and you have to kind of shake it to get it to make contact. So we'll do that there, and that was the blue one. We'll clip that back on. Alright, I think that's it. Let's get this now in the other end. As you can see, it threads on quite easily. And then we'll put it back in the mechanism kind of this way round. I think that should be it. Let's connect it back up now and see if it works. Oh, well, it's come unsoldered, but well, we can deal with that. I think now all I need to do is get it put back together. And for now, I think, before I reconnect this, I'm just going to pop the batteries in and see what it does. So we get the initial sound, but it's not continuing to sound anymore. Let's try this. Is it going to continue? Well, it's kind of a power on, I think. So then, whilst it's doing that... Oh. Swiping motion doesn't seem to work. Oh no! What's going on there?
Looking inside the sword again, and one of the wires that connects the spring switch to the printed circuit assembly has snapped. This had probably happened when I'd been interacting with the spring at the other end of it. It seemed that as I was soldering the blue wire back in place, I managed to snap off the yellow wire too, but even this wasn't the sword's only problem.
So, consistent with Toy Polloi theory that this had been trodden on, I noticed now I have this printed circuit assembly out of the way that the speaker is completely crushed. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really pushed down where it shouldn't be. I don't think much good is going to come from me attempting to reposition that. So this sword isn't going to be as loud as it would have done before. Of course, while I was interacting with it, another wire came disconnected as well, so I need to solder that back in place too. So I think now I've got everything soldered back together. I actually popped a bit of solder on the end of here to make sure that spring also made a good contact. So let's put it all back together and see if it works.
Well, that's promising. So with a massive thank you to Toy Polloi for involving me in this repair, I guess that just about wraps it up for our He-Man Power Sword. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and that if you have, you'll consider hitting subscribe. But until next time, I'd just like to thank you so much for watching Retrotech Repair.
And off we come with the lid.